Hey guys, Saul Goodman here. TheAlmightyLoli contacted me to explain legal jargon to you knuckleheads because Margot Robbie is an evil witch that calls the police for no reason. You see, contract law, especially between international entertainment corporations, is a very complicated subject and not as easy as what smelly losers on Twitter would have you believe. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, this entire situation is far more complicated than just buy video game and bad lady gets money. There's IP ownership to consider. Now you might be asking, well, doesn't J.K. Rowling own the Harry Potter IP? It seems like an obvious question. She's the creator of the Harry Potter franchise to begin with. Of course, she'd retain ownership and receive royalties, correct? Well, there's actually a lot of evidence that points to her not really being involved in anything Harry Potter related that isn't the novel series. TheAlmightyLoli was contacted by a woman known as Gamer Girl Sweat, a business analyst that had to spend a lot of time learning about IP law for her field. She knows what she's talking about and where to go to dig up this information. And she had a pretty radical theory. J.K. Rowling more than likely made minimal or outright no royalties from Hogwarts Legacy. Now you might be typing a storm away in the comments, frothing at the mouth that this is all a bunch of chicanery. And he thought the same thing at first. But as it turns out, someone that actually knows what they're doing did the one thing nobody else did in this entire controversy. She took a look. You see, there's a lot of misconceptions around IP and what exactly it is. An IP, for those that don't know, stands for intellectual property. To put it simply, it's the assorted material and assets that are legally protected by a company or individual, whether it's something physical, like a product you hold in your hand, or a copyright, which is referred to as a non-physical asset. Non-physical assets cover things like copyrights, trademarks, and patents, though that's just the simple definition. And while some of these might be under lock and key, the vast majority are fully available to be viewed by the public. The law firm that Warner Brothers uses to register their trademarks and copyrights even has a website where you can see everything they own. Gerben. Now, copyrighting a specific asset does not mean you own an idea. You simply own the very specific version of that idea that you created. Otherwise, every zombie movie in history owes Romero a lot of money. And there's also instances where IP can change hands, such as being sold off to a different company. This is partly what caused the fiasco a few years back where Marvel couldn't bring the X-Men into the MCU because Fox owned the rights to make the films since Marvel sold them off. An owner can sell off certain permissions to their IP to other companies. And in fact, this happens all the time. Hell, it happened with J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. You see, the Harry Potter franchise is split across 5 different parties. J.K. Rowling, the creator. Warner Brothers, who own the rights to the films and other media. Scholastic Books, the U.S. publishing company Rowling used. Bloomsbury, the U.K. publishing company for her novels. And Grafica Veneta, who handles worldwide distribution of the novels otherwise. Each party gets a slice of the pie, and each one has their own contracts between each other. This isn't even considering the contracts within contracts, like how Warner Brothers worked with Electronic Arts for the early Harry Potter games. This is a long and complicated process, and obviously not a clear Scrooge McDuck situation where Rowling can swim in her Hogwarts money. She's a very wealthy woman, yes, but not because of video game sales. In fact, when you dig into who exactly owns what, you get some weird answers. JK collaborated with WB in what's known as the wizarding world. This might imply that she gets her cut from Warner Brothers, but that's the thing. Nowhere in any of the copyrights for assorted Harry Potter material is JK named in collaboration with Warner Brothers. I'm serious. Go to tmsearch.usp2.gov. It's the official United States Trademark Office. And everything Harry Potter related is listed under Warner Brothers. The movies, the theme parks, the video games, even the stage plays. And not once does it list Rowling as a co-owner in this, which for a legal document worth millions of dollars is a pretty big detail. In a licensing agreement between WB and Universal that is public information, J.K. Rowling is listed as reserving publishing and theatrical stage rights, meaning anything to do with the books or plays falls under her copyright. In fact, she would have her own personal license agreement with Universal regarding sales of her books if they decided to sell them in one of their amusement parks. This isn't something that can be implied. Legal contracts are very specific and very literal. It's why lawyers make a living trying to find plot holes, because a hole in a contract could be worth tens of millions. In fact, if Universal Studios decided to have a book reading event where a narrator went through the entirety of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and didn't make a contract with Rowling herself to get permission for this, then they would be in violation of her copyright. There's also the merchandise. If a company sells t-shirts with Harry Potter designs on them through Walmart and Universal, they would have to pay royalties. The original producer of the merchandise is the one who foots the bill. For example, Walmart doesn't pay the royalties to sell Harry Potter Legos in their stores. Lego does. Since they are a third party desiring permission to make money off the back of a franchise they have no involvement in, beyond their triple extra large Slytherin for Life shirt. The company sells the shirts, Walmart and Universal distribute them, and the company who produced the shirts pays the royalties. But if Universal wanted to make their own shirts and sell them in their parks, despite owning the permission to make overpriced tourist traps with bad food and long lines, they would still need to pay royalties. Universal only has the license to make theme parks. They own nothing and have to pay Warner Brothers royalties for every Harry Potter branded piece of merch at their parks. It's why Harry Potter is such a big moneymaker. Because Universal does not own the trademark for merchandising, Warner Brothers does. These agreements cover their territory and define the relationships each company or entity has over IP. Rowling, as far as the paperwork is concerned, owns the rights to her books and stage play adaptations. Everything else purely falls under Warner Brothers, an American company based out of California. Now, Hogwarts Legacy was made by Avalanche Software, a game studio based out of Salt Lake City, Go Stallions, and it was the first title published under WB's new publisher company, Portkey Games. Portkey is based out of England. This might imply that Rowling is involved here, especially since this game falls under the Wizarding World, but once again, there's no smoking gun document that says Rowling makes 5% off every sale of Hogwarts Legacy, unless it's locked up in a CEO's safe somewhere. But that's just speculation at that point. Remember, legal contracts are literal, and they are specific. Now, if you look at Hogwarts Legacy's website, it'll name Rowling in their copyright message. But that's referencing the book series. Warner Brothers owns the rights to the video games, and why would they make a contract with somebody just to pay royalties to them? You see, the biggest misconception in this situation is what exactly royalties are. Everyone, even hack journalists who are supposed to be the guys who clarify this mistake, believe royalties simply equals sales. A Led Zeppelin album gets sold, so the band gets royalties. But royalties are more like a penalty for a party to use material they don't own outright. So it's more like the CD company that sells their inventory to Walmart has to pay royalties for the right to use Stairway to Heaven to make sure they don't sue you for making money off their material. Now, since the game is under the banner of Wizarding World, which is the collaboration between Rowling and Warner Brothers, you would think this means that it's said and done. But nowhere on Rowling's personal trademarks does it reference her relationship with the game. In fact, famously, there were statements from the developers insisting she had no involvement, meaning that Warner Brothers is the one getting the majority of the gold here. The more logical explanation is this. Rowling sold the rights to the video games to Warner Brothers, who paid her for permission to use her series for their own projects. Each adaptation boosts her book sales, which she does own and make money off of. And that's the secret to her wealth. Because if she made money off every single Harry Potter product sold, then she'd be richer than Bernard Arnault. Does this mean Warner Brothers can make Harry Potter games willy-nilly without paying Rowling a cent? On paper, yes. If she sold the rights to the video games to Warner Brothers, Rowling wasn't involved in development. Don't even bring the books or movies into it. If Warner Brothers trademarked the word Hogwarts for video games, then that's that. Warner Brothers is the owner, and Rowling does not make money. If Rowling gave up her rights to the video games, then she doesn't get any royalties from it, even as the creator of Harry Potter, because she sold the rights off to another company for a cash payout, meaning she already got the money and rode off into the sunset. I remind you all of the X-Men and MCU example. Marvel created the X-Men, they are their characters, but since they sold the rights to the films to someone else, they were screwed. They owned the characters for the comic books, but they couldn't make any movies about them without specific collaborations with the actual rights owners, like Spider-Man and Sony. If Marvel still received royalties for these characters, no matter the medium they showed up in, they wouldn't have scrambled to buy out Fox or enter very intense negotiations to try and bring Spider-Man under Marvel's umbrella. But to say she gets money from each copy sold is stretching things. She sold the rights to the video games all the way back in the early 2000s. The first Harry Potter video game released as early as 2001. This is not a new deal. It's been in place for over 2 decades. Sure, she jokes about her royalty checks on Twitter, but if Rowling actually sat down, explained how her contracts and licensing agreements work, then she'd most likely be sued for corporate espionage. All we have to go by are public records, and the records point to Warner Brothers making money. And if we're going to hang people in the town square for buying a Harry Potter game, we'd better make damn sure we know where the money goes, instead of just blind speculation. Thank you all for listening to this long speech about copyright, and an extra thank you for Gamer Girl Sweat for doing the hard work of piecing this chimera together. She did a lot of work gathering information, checking sources, and dealing with Loli's rampant incompetence to make sure this gets to you guys properly. So I would like you all to put a comment down thanking the based Girl Sweat for making our lives a little easier. Almighty Loli is going to wrap things up, so I'll let him take back over. Have a good night and kiss my ass, Walter. You ruined my life.